In this episode, we're going to review the Banter by WE Knife. This is the first knife designed by Ben Peterson, who was once a YouTube content creator marketing knives for Blade HQ. The Banter quickly sold out in its first run, sight unseen. So there's a lot of hype around this knife. Let's go inside and answer the question whether a YouTube creator and knife enthusiast can design a decent knife. Welcome back to Blade Insider, where we're about all things knives. And today we're going to review the Banter by WE Knife. Unfortunately, this knife's journey to my review table has been just a mess. I've known about this knife for several months now, and I've looked forward to it. The knife had a limited first run and was exclusively sold by Blade HQ. I've had a couple of bad experiences with Blade HQ in the past with subpar customer service. Also, they've sent me knives in damaged boxes, which is a big deal if you plan on reselling them in the future. Fortunately, they did credit me $40 on my next purchase and agreed to send the knife overnight, which they did. Well, I have the knife now and I'm ready to review it. Have you had good or bad experiences with knife vendors? All too often, I think there are some YouTube reviewers that are real hesitant about saying anything bad about knife vendors because of their relationship with them. Let me know in the comment section below if you had good or bad experiences with knife vendors. And while you're down there, hit the subscribe button and maybe the like button as well. What if you could design and build a knife? What kind of knife would it be? What would it look like? What materials would you use? Well, Ben Peterson answered that question and designed his own knife. And with the help of WE Knife, he built the damn thing too. Ben was formerly employed with Blade HQ and hosted Knife Banter on YouTube. I watched a lot of these shows and they were always entertaining and informative. He created a template which Knife Banter creates content today. So he was very influential on my channel. I knew I wanted this knife early on. First, I wanted Ben to succeed in building a good knife. On his shows, he would often tell the audience on what qualities he liked in knives, from the blade length to simple designs. So if you listen to his show, you would not be surprised by the knife he eventually came up with. Second, I wanted a knife from WE Knife. WE Knife is a manufacturer and exporter of high-quality knives from China. They have an excellent reputation for fit and finish of their knives. For this knife and for knives in the future that I review, I'm implementing a new review system consisting of 6 factors that are important to me when I decide whether or not to buy a knife. They are design and aesthetics, carryability, materials, utility, miscellaneous factors, and value. I will be grading the knife on a 5-point scale that may be weighted more heavily on one or more of these factors to come up with an overall score at the end. So let's get to the bench and take a look at the Banter. This is a Banter from WE Knives. Under the first review category, design and aesthetics, I think the design of this knife is understated. I like the black look of the knife, and it's offset by the Ben Blue thumb studs. It definitely has a utility look to it that begs for use. The silver symbol on the pivot would have been better served with a different color or a bolder silver color. The shape of the handles is functional, and I know the designer was going for a simplistic look when he designed the knife. But I think the knife could have used an anodized Ben blue backspacer between the end of the scales. The knife will not win any beauty contest, but that was never its goal. It was built to be used. I'm going to give this knife a 4 out of 5. It's not fancy, but it will be faithful. The knife scores higher because the fit and finish on it are outstanding. The second category is carryability. First, let's look at some specs on this knife. The overall length of the knife is 6.52 inches. The blade length is 6.9 inches, and the closed length is 3.62 inches. Blade thickness is 0.1 inch, handle thickness is 0.45 inches, and the weight is 2.86 ounces. The blade grind is flat. You can also get this knife in Ben Blue with a stonewash finish on the blade. Let's compare this knife with some others. First, we'll compare it to the Delica and the CRKT Pilar. Now, as you can see, the Banter is just a smidge shorter than both the Delica and the CRKT Pilar. Next, we'll compare it to the ZT-0230. The 0230 is very comparable in terms of size with the Banter. And we'll compare that with the Leek, which again is just a little longer in both the blade and the handle. Next, we'll compare it with the TRM Neutron. The Neutron is a very similar knife with a little longer handle and maybe a smidge longer in the blade. Finally, we'll compare it to a couple Benchmade offerings, the Bug Out and the Super Freak. The blade shapes between the Banter and the Super Freak are very similar. The Bug Out is longer in both blade and handle. Finally, we'll compare it to the Little Native. Little Native has a little shorter blade and a little shorter handle. But this knife reminds me most of the Little Native. The Little Native has a special place in my heart because it's such a utility knife that can be used for all sorts of tasks. It's a knife that begs to be used, just like the Banter. The last thing I want to do in terms of carryability is see how this knife fits in a pair of pants. Now the knife will fit nicely in the watch pocket of your jeans. The clip works out well, it's tight, but it can come in and out without any difficulty and without tearing up your jeans. Again, anybody who's watched this channel knows that I like to put knives in my watch pocket to avoid scratching up my phone. But the knife will also fit in your pocket like so. It's a deep carry clip, so the knife fits very well in the pocket with very little of it showing outside the pocket. Finally, the knife can be tucked away deep in your pocket with your keys and your wallet. If the knife is designed for utility, then it must be very carryable. This knife meets that criteria, and I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 in terms of carryability. The next category is materials. So the knife has G10 scales, S35V steel, anodized thumb screws that are titanium, and caged ceramic ball bearing. S35V steel is a mid-tier steel. If we look at the edge retention, Using the Knife Nerd study, we find that it is below S30V steel and M4 in terms of edge retention, but above D2 steel and CPM 154. That's because S35V steel has 3% vanadium. The caged ceramic ball bearings really make this knife stick out. They are a blast to open. These ceramic ball bearings are a premium opening mechanism. For materials, I'm going to rank this knife a 3.5 out of 5. The next characteristic is utility. The most important part of utility is how the knife opens and closes. This knife, the blade shoots out and is almost drop shut close. The knife came perfectly centered and is razor sharp. You're going to be able to use this knife for most tasks. It's not a safe queen, so it'll be used and used a lot. Also, because of its size, it won't create a lot of anxiety in public. Based upon the utility design, carryability, and function, I believe that the knife scores well in this category. So for utility, I'm giving the knife 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next category is miscellaneous. Miscellaneous is one of them catch-all categories. Now, in regard to the banter, I first have to talk about my purchase experience. It was full of frustration. Now, normally, you can't blame the manufacturer for a knife vendor's error in shipping out the product. However, if the knife manufacturer makes it an exclusive to just one vendor, then they probably bear some of the blame for any problems that happen. Now, I just may be one person out of 1,000 that had an issue. 999 other people may have gotten their knives without any problems whatsoever. But they're not reviewing the knife. I am. So I have to factor that in slightly into my review. I think this knife is unique because of its blade shape and blocky design. It contains a sharpening choil and 3 screws, which includes a pivot, which allow it to be torn apart. The knife will be easy to maintain and will allow for sharpening the full blade length. Those are positive factors under this miscellaneous categories. Based on these factors, I'm going to give this knife 3.5 out of 5. Our final factor is value. The knife was sold for $109. The blade steel is S35 steel, and the fit and finish on this knife are pretty good. The packaging materials that came with the knife include a knife pouch, a microfiber cloth, various stickers. The knife pouch was kind of notable because it has a shag carpeting in it, which I think is a cool feature. And it has room for 2 knives. Now, I will continue to complain about some American manufacturers that send their knives, their $100, $200, $300 knives out in I don't give a crap about the customer experience boxes. I do appreciate that if you're going to spend all this money on a knife, that the manufacturer puts it in a nice package. Now, you can get better steels at a better price point. For example, the Kershaw Link or Dividend, or similar steels that are cheaper, like my Kaiser Active Baton. But certainly, it's not a bad value given the steel and the quality of manufacture. So for value, I'm going to give this knife a 4 out of 5. Well, that's a banter by WE Knife and Ben Peterson. The overall score will not always be the average of the 6 categories used to rank the knife. If that were the case, the knife would score a 3.91. I'm going to give this knife a solid 4. And if you're just scoring based upon utility and the use of the knife, that score would be 4.5. It's a real solid effort by Ben and WE Knife. WE Knife designs are usually more exotic. I'm glad they went with this more simplistic and utility design. Now the knife may not be as fancy as some other knives that you own, but I bet you'll get a lot of pocket time out of it, maybe in the garage, on the trail, or in your tool belt. Knives are tools, and that's where tools belong, in your hand. At this point, the banters are sold out. However, based on the fact that they sold out so quickly, I imagine we'll be seeing some more real soon. I'm also anticipating that more vendors will be selling them as well. So what do you think of the knife? Tell me your opinion in the comment section below. While you're down there, hit the subscribe button and punch the like button. And don't forget to ring that bell as well. We put out new videos every Sunday, so we would love for you to come back. We'll see you next time.